In today's show, we continue our season previews with a look at Shaedon Sharpe. What does a year 3 breakout look like? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're continuing our season preview series. It's the Locked On Blazers countdown to tip-off, running down every player on the roster. I'm going to give you a brief but thorough look at what they'll bring to the team this season. We'll talk about what they did last year, best and worst case scenarios, role and expectations heading into this season. This is the 10th player we've done. Tonight, we're scoring at all 3 levels. We're throwing it down in transition, and we're about to have a big old year 3 breakout. It's Shaedon Sharpe. Let's look backward to look forward here in the first segments. What Shaedon Sharpe did during his sophomore season, one where we just didn't get to see him enough. Sharpe appeared in just 32 games in his second season, and it started with him coming off the bench. Night 1, he was not the starter. Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons were your starters on night 1. Malcolm Brogdon was going to be a bench guy, and so was Shaedon Sharpe. But then Anthony Simons fractures his thumb on night 1, and Sharpe is thrust into the starting lineup, starting the next 24 games. Before we get into all of what he did on the season. So Shaedon Sharpe, a bench player for night 1, suddenly a starter, record scratch on the season, year 2. Across those 32 games, he scored 15.9 points, grabbed 5.0 boards, and dished out 2.9 assists, shot 40.6% from the floor, including 33.3% from 3 and 82.4% from the free throw line. All told, he averaged 33.1 minutes per night thanks to a whole bunch of injuries and him getting a heavy minutes load when he was available. So like I said, I got a little ahead of myself because I usually do the stats up top. I'm just excited to tell you the Shaedon Sharpe story. Starts the season as a bench guard. He's going to be a guy who's going to play. He's obviously part of the rotation, right? He's like a big part of the franchise's future. But he starts night 1 coming off the bench. Anthony Simons gets hurt. They just put Shaedon Sharpe into the starting lineup. It's time. Let's go. He starts the next 24 games. During that stretch of 24 games, he had 9 such nights where he played at least 40 minutes. No Anthony Simons. Scoot Henderson gets hurt a little bit. Malcolm Brogdon had some bumps and bruises early. There were just nights when there were 2 available guards, and it was just like, Shaedon Sharpe, you're going to play friggin' 43 minutes. Like you're going to sit 2.5 minutes in each half, and you're just going to play a bunch. Listen, he started the season. He was still 20 until May. He was 20 all season long. He'll be 21 all this season as well. Unless the Blazers make the second round of the playoffs. But they let him play a lot. They put a lot on his plate. There was a stretch in December in early December where there was Shaedon Sharpe's playing too many minutes, but he looked incredible. He had a 5-game stretch where he scored at least 24 points and grabbed at least 4 rebounds in 5 consecutive games. Over that stretch, 26.2 points, 6.6 boards, and 5 assists. Really what fueled that run, and it's like why small sample sizes are funny, is like he shot 46% from 3. He made 20 of 43 threes during that stretch. But he had like a high usage, like on ball, go get it, go score, top of the scouting report type role, and he was playing very, very well. He had kind of followed up that game with a stinker against Utah, but any 5-game sample size suggests that there are 77 other games during the regular season, but during that stretch, you could see the peak of what Shaedon Sharpe could be, but it didn't last for very long because within a week, he was on the injury report. The game of December 19th, the evening of December 19th, the Blazers were playing the Phoenix Suns, and prior to that game, Shaedon Sharpe had been listed as questionable with what the team called right abductor soreness. But before the game, he was upgraded from questionable to available. He plays, but he only played 1 shift, played about just over 8 minutes in the first quarter, goes to the bench, does not check back in, and it's clearly like by the middle of the second quarter, it's like, oh, he's hurt. Like he's just not playing, sitting at the end of the bench, and then it doesn't check back in. He misses the next 5 games. That's on December 19th. Misses the next 5 games. He returns during the Blazers' nightmare road trip. They begin January with a 6-game road trip. They start out the first 3 games of the road trip just getting absolutely shelled. They get absolutely shelled. They lose a couple games in Dallas, one by 29, one by 36. Just like, okay. They go to Brooklyn, and Sharpe, who came back after a 5-game absence on a minutes limit, is clearly no longer on a minutes limit, and he plays really well against the Nets. And the Blazers win in overtime. And Shaedon Sharpe played over Scoot Henderson, and he's playing down the stretch of the game and into overtime because he earned the minutes, and he was like deservingly the young guard who should have been on the court. Right, there was no doubt about it. The Blazers desperately needed a win during that stretch, and Sharpe plays 41 minutes in a game that went into overtime, so he would have played 36 in regulation, but 41 minutes the game goes into overtime, and they win a much needed win, an exhale, and then they finish out that road trip with 2 more games, including a 63-point, the first of their 2 60-point losses on the year. What a season, against OKC, and Shaedon Sharpe leaves that game early, and his season is done. That's on January 11th. So he gets a big heavy usage role into the middle of December, misses the end of December, comes back for 5 games, and then he just can't get back. On February 9th, he has surgery. The Blazers are then calling it like lower core muscle surgery. They're calling it a core muscle injury, not this right abductor strain. They're no longer calling it like what is essentially a groin strain, but they're not calling it like an abdominal issue. It's the same thing. They just changed the wording around a little bit. So he was supposed to be ready in about 6 weeks. At the end of April, it's clear he wants to play, and he's getting closer. But the Blazers, they lost 15 of their final 17 games. They weren't interested in winning at the end of the season. So when Sharpe wasn't cleared in March, right? Like he could have been cleared right at the end of March is basically the timeline. When he wasn't cleared at the end of March, it just seemed really unlikely he was going to play. And eventually the Blazers, after saying he's getting closer, finally ruled him out and officially ended his season on April 9th with 4 games remaining in the season, with 4 games left. Like it just became a thing. Like, is he going to play? Is Shaedon Sharpe going to come back? It didn't make sense for him to come back that final 5 games, but the Blazers kind of let it hang over us a little bit, whether it was, and then eventually the team officially ruled him out. When they officially ruled him out, he ended up speaking to reporters and said that he hadn't been cleared for 5-on-5. He wanted to play, but the team chose not to clear him. Whether he could or could not have, I think is like impossible for us to know. Could he have played in an NBA game? I don't know, maybe, right? But could he have safely played an NBA game? I think that is an unknowable variable. And the team chose for a variety of reasons, particularly because there's very little upside to him playing in the final 4 games of the regular season. Maybe it's like, I would have enjoyed it selfishly, but like very low upside organizationally and for Sharpe to play in those final games. Instead, they're just like, go get right, play in the summertime, work on your game, work on your body, start to understand sort of what it means for you to take the next steps in the next stages of your career, because this is a big old season coming up for you, and get healthy. Sharpe, he, it didn't play in Summer League. I don't think that was a surprise. Usually third-year guys do not play in Summer League. It's always weird when they do. It's like, this guy's too good to be here, or it's like, this guy's a third-year player in Summer League. That's a nightmare. I mean, the Blazers way back in the day had to beg Alan Crabb to play Summer League as a third-year player, and he really didn't want to, but they wanted him to have that moment to be the guy in Vegas. But it's always weird when third-year guys play. Shaedon Sharpe didn't play. That wasn't a surprise. He was invited to Team Canada's training camp ahead of their Olympic run. He was not invited with a chance to make the team. He was invited as a chance to, hey, you're going to be part of the program in the future, potentially come to training camp and be involved. But he was not like, he was not invited for like a tryout. He was invited as a practice invitee, I think is maybe the way to say it. So we really haven't seen a ton of Sharpe this summer. He's played in a pro-am game in Vancouver. He's released some social media highlight tapes, but it has been a while since the first week of January in which we've seen Shaedon Sharpe play. He remains, and perhaps fittingly, a mystery man of sorts. but he has some skills that are undeniable. He has some moments that are undeniable. And if he puts it all together, he has the chance to be a very special player. To me, he's the player with the highest ceiling on the roster. I think Scoot Henderson probably has more, in terms of like the young guys, more paths to being like productive. I think Don McClingan has a cleaner path to being like a productive NBA player just because he's like, it's going to be simpler what he does. But if Shaedon Sharpe hits his ceiling, like true ceiling, I think he has the highest ceiling of anyone on the team. Let's talk about ceilings. Let's talk about floors. It's what we do in the second segment. We'll talk best and worst case scenarios. Join me in that second segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you that today's program is brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. And you, NFL fan and listener of this show, I'm recording this on Sunday during Sunday Night Football. If you spent your day watching the NFL, well, you can get going because we're heading into week 4 of the NFL season next week, and FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, wants you to get in on the action. So much they want to get on the action with in-game live betting. You get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check the latest stats, you can view play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. So if you want to live bet some NFL games, FanDuel makes it easier for you to do that. Plus, they're going to make it fun for you as well. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So if you're new to FanDuel, go take advantage. That's all available for you at FanDuel.com. All right, I almost did my third segment intro there. That would have been a nightmare. Luckily, we made it to the second segment. We're talking best case and worst case scenarios for Shaedon Sharpe. These are best case scenarios within reason and worst case scenario without injury. I think undeniable, before we get into this too much, is like Shaedon Sharpe missed 50 games last year. Part of the like unspoken part, and I'm not going to speak on it more than this, is like we just need to see him. We need to see him. What's the best case scenario for Shaedon Sharpe? It's that in year 3, Shaedon has the makings of an all-star. And not a one-off Jaren Jackson Jr. made the all-star team once. Not a one-off Sam Cassell made the all-star team once. A dude who competes to make the all-star team every season. A guy who puts it all together. An offensive hub, a 3-level scorer, and someone with the type of functional athleticism to be the engine of a team. I'm not saying that the best case scenario is that Shaedon Sharpe is that he just shows up in training camp in year 3 and he's Paul freaking George, right? Like he's like a borderline Hall of Famer. You know, he's going to spend, I think Paul George is maybe pushing double-digit all-star appearances. I'm not saying that immediately. What I'm saying, the best case scenario for Shaedon Sharpe is when we get to the end of the year, all of it has clicked such that you know this is the makings, the trappings of a multi-time perennial all-star type player. When we get to the end of the season, Shaedon Sharpe has instead of changed the conversation to, oh, he's in a contract year, but it doesn't matter, to be like, pay him quickly. Pay him quickly because you want him to be around forever. I think like you're going to end up playing him quickly anyways, so I don't want to put that fear into anyone, but like the best case scenario looks like this. Sharpe can continue to have the ability to get his own mid-range jump shot off the bounce. He improves as a finisher, getting back to his rookie year levels in his 3rd season, and his shooting from 3, he has the ability to shoot off the dribble. He's a catch and shoot guy. He can create his own shot at all 3 levels. He can play a little bit off the ball. And that his defense, which has been bad his first couple seasons in the league, starts to just trend up towards league average. I think generally guys his size, like, 6'6" and athletic, even if they're bad, like instinctually on defense, can usually fake the funk just because of size and athleticism. It's like, maybe they'll still get picked on a little bit or beat a little bit because they don't have like the sort of the natural gifts of a good defender. But like, I would say like Luka Doncic is not a very good defender, but he is gigantic. And he's able to play in some really good defensive lineups just because of his sheer size. Now, Shaedon isn't that big, right? But he's big, and like 6'6", you can fake it a lot better than 6. If you're a bad defender at 6'2", 6'3", it's troublesome. If you're a bad defender at 6'6", it's just a size that allows you to get away with a little bit more. And the best case scenario is it gets away with a little bit more on defense, and the 3-level scoring pops on offense. In his rookie season, Shaedon Sharpe shot 69% of the rim. In his sophomore season, he shot 54%. I think the best case scenario is that he ticks up towards that 69%. In his second season, Shaedon Sharpe showed a lot more playmaking prowess than he had in prior years. That's a lot of P words for you. A lot of plosives in the microphone. But the best case scenario is that trend where it was like his rookie season is like, does this dude see his teammates? Like he has so many gifts, but like, does he see his teammates? Year 2, he got some on-ball reps. And those during his sort of December situation, right? Where it's just like, you're going to play a lot because we don't have anyone else. And Joe Cronin signed Jamari Bouye, and freaking Chauncey Billups does not want to play Jamari Bouye because his first experiences are pretty negative. So Shaedon, you're playing 45 minutes, buddy. Get out there. Like during that sort of high usage season or section of his year, which was, that's 24 of the 32 games he played. During that stretch, it's like we saw him as an on-ball creator. As a guy who was a primary, as a guy who was getting his own offense and helping the team get theirs. The Blazers weren't very good then, but like when you're totally decimated by injuries, I'm not really worried about the win-loss stuff as much as the functional things. There were moments when you saw Shaedon Sharpe play like lead guard, primary creator type of weapon and ability to get his own shot and get shots for others. That's what I'm talking about. The hub. The best case scenario is that gets extrapolated for 75 games, not 5, not 6 in December, or 9 of his 17 games. And it's like, no, not that, no small sample sizes, no rose-colored glasses. The best case scenario is 70 games where you freaking see it, and you say like, well, he's averaging 24 and 4, and if he got a little bit more leash, he could pretty cleanly average 23, 5 and 5. And if he gets a little bit stronger and a little bit smarter about how defenses are going to attack him, then then the building blocks. The best case scenario is that when we get to the end of the season, we're not talking about 10 games his rookie season and 5 games his sophomore season. We're talking about 70 games in year 3 that are proof of concept. That's the best case scenario. What's the worst case scenario? It's that the undeniably tantalizing skill set never fully coalesces and he remains inconsistent in his production. And what for me is the biggest question with Shaedon Sharpe is, can he remain aggressive off script? What I mean by that is that there have been moments in both his NBA seasons. We haven't seen a ton of them, and he's very young, and he's in all of those things, right? Like he's 21, but year 3 is year 3, right? Like this is the time when good players usually take a step forward. We've seen him on script, and by that I mean like, hey, we're going to give you the ball, you're going to run a pick and roll and go dunk. We've seen him do that against Rudy Gobert and the T-Wolves his rookie season, where it's like, go get a bucket, we need you. He had a really good game against Cleveland and their front line in his sophomore season, where it's like, that's one of the best defensive teams in the league. It's like, we're going to give you the ball, go score. 26, 5 boards, 5 assists, gets his own offense, creates offense for others, like is the engine. There are moments when it says, hey, this is the plan. You're the guy who's going to execute the plan. Go do it. The question is, can Shaedon Sharpe in those moments when he isn't that, right? Because in the run of the regular season, Scoot Henderson's going to have the ball in his hands. Jeremy Grant's going to have the ball in his hands. Anthony Simon's going to have the ball in his hands. They're going to give the ball to Denny Avdia. They're going to have to run some, stuff to get DeAndre Ayton shots because he needs help to get his own offense. So there's going to be moments where it isn't Shaedon Sharpe on the ball, carte blanche to go get it. He's going to be off the ball, off script. And it's like, can you get the ball off script? Can you work the baseline and go get a bucket? Can you get it as a second side creator and still maintain your aggression? Or is it just, it's hard to, the worst case scenario is that it's hard for him to maintain the consistency of production when he isn't the guy. And because he can't earn the production as not the guy, he never graduates to the level to be capital T, capital G, the guy. I don't think there's a floor. Like Sharpe averaged 16, 5 and 3 last year. I think that's like his floor, right? Like I think that's his absolute floor, that he's like comes back in year 3 and he's like, well, 16, 5 and 3, boy, that felt bad. I think his floor is pretty, like in terms of just like production. I think I think he's going to be like 17, 18 and 5 boards and 3 assists, right? I think that you can book it, and he has a chance to be much more than that. But I think you can just like put that down in pencil as kind of the floor. The worst case scenario is not necessarily the box score numbers. It's that he isn't consistently playing to his peak. And for so many guys, that's the difference. For some guys in the league, it's skill. Like when I did the DeAndre Ayton preview, it's like I think a lot of people confuse it's like effort with Ayton. Some of it is just skill. He just doesn't have the ball handling skills to like really go get his own offense and to like be a hub. Sharpe has the skills. He has them. His ball handling improved a lot. His playmaking improved a lot. He shot worse from 2 and he shot worse from 3 in his sophomore season, but some of that is like really weird high usage stuff and bad team context and all of those things. The shot looks really good. Like it looks really clean. He has the skills. It's just whether he can put it together with consistency. Is he a once a week type of guy? Is he a twice a week type of guy? Or is he a 4 times a week type of guy? How often does he touch his peak? How often does Shaedon Sharpe play to the best of his abilities? And how much do you have to coax it out of him with the right role and the right ask and the right situation? Can he be the best version of himself? Or at least can he show you what the best version of the different roles he's going to have to play all the time? Because he hasn't graduated to the level where it's like, give him the ball and get out of the way. He's just not that yet. You hope he is, but he's not that yet. Anthony Simons and Denny Avdia are much, much more along those lines of like dudes on the team who you like, give him the ball and we'll figure it out. Like, and I think obviously Ant significantly more than Denny, but like, you want Shaedon to graduate there. And if he doesn't graduate there, can he be awesome when he's a secondary, tertiary, 4th option, whatever it looks like? The worst case scenario for Shaedon Sharpe is that you still know he's talented, but he doesn't remind you often enough. Okay, let's talk role and expectations in the 3rd segment. I got a pretty good idea of what Shaedon Sharpe's role is going to be, but the expectations are maybe too high, but also like, what should they be? What are reasonable expectations for Shaedon Sharpe in year 3? Let's talk about that in the 3rd segment to close the show. Join me there, won't you? First, though, I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. There's 3 words you need to know: passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Whether that's superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always be able to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Let's talk role and expectations for Shaedon Sharpe. The role's pretty simple. I think he's likely to start because I think the most reasonable lineup the Blazers could play is to start the year is Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, Denny Avdia, Jeremy Grant, and DeAndre Ayton. I think that's the most reasonable lineup. I think there's a world in which Scoot Henderson starts next to Ant and Shaedon Sharpe comes off the bench. I think that is very much in play. I wouldn't bet on it because it doesn't, like, the Ant and Scoot pairing's pretty bad, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's it at all. I said as much in the summertime, and I maintain it now. This lineup with Shaedon Sharpe starting makes more sense positionally, but the organization has its own goals, and people have egos, and you've got to balance all of those things. Regardless, Shaedon Sharpe's going to play about 30 minutes. 29 to 32. I think that's right in there. There's 96 guard minutes to be had, right? I think the 3 guards are basically going to be, 2 of the 3 of them are going to be on the court at all times. That's Simons, Henderson, and Sharpe. You can split it evenly. You can call it 33 a night. I think he plays between 30 and 32 minutes, 29 to 32 minutes, pretty much regardless of his role. I think that's the right number for him to play. You want to see all the pairings. You want to see what he's like with Simons. You want to see what he's like with Scoot. You want to see what those two littler guards are like together. You want to see the trio together a little bit. All three of those guys on the court. I think you have to, even though I'm skeptical of that working at all, you have to see all three of them on the court, at least for some significant stretches. Maybe not every single night, and maybe not, but like you need to play it. You just owe it to the organization to take a look at what that trio looks like at least a little bit. Expectations are a little bit different. I think more than other players on the roster, there is an expectation that Shaedon Sharpe can and will take off, at least from the fan base. From the organization, I would say they are, they're not as, I don't know, fans are different than the organization, obviously, for so many different reasons. But to be like, when Joe Cronin says, we're going to do everything we can to build around Shaedon and Scoot Henderson, you know what they think. They think that's the core of the future. This was the guy, when the Blazers chose to draft Shaedon Sharpe, with Damian Lillard on the roster, with Damian Lillard begging them to trade the number 7 pick in the 2022 draft for veteran help, and they chose to draft a kid who did not play any college basketball, a total mystery box who went from the freaking Peach Jam to the NBA. They chose this path, and Sharpe was the first flag they put down. He is a huge, talk about organizational investment. He's the guy who signaled what direction they were heading, and there was no doubt about it. I said it as much on draft night. It was clear. So there's a lot, certainly, an organization invested in Sharpe being good. It's just like teams have to pivot 1,000 different times and pick their spots, and if you get stuff wrong, and you have to make other decisions, right? But I think there's an expectation among the fan base that Sharpe goes nuts this year and is like the savior of the franchise. And I wonder, certainly he has the tools, no doubt about it. Like I mentioned, I think Scoot Henderson has a wider array of positive outcomes, because I think he has more ways to be a positive player, like a neutral NBA player. I think Donovan Clingan, in terms of youngsters, has he has a fairly narrow path. I think it's like, if this dude can play defense, he's probably a 10-year pro type of thing. Sharpe has a wider chances of just not being that productive, right? He was a lot less efficient in year 2 than year 1. It went the wrong way. Again, team context and injury and all of those things, but undeniable. He shot worse from 2 and worse from 3 in year 2 than he did in year 1. But he has the tools. He has all of the tools. He has the ability to get his own shot, which is superstar stuff. That's what superstars do. Not every player in the league needs to be able to do that. It's why quote unquote the mid-range is dead, because role players don't need to take mid-range jumpers. They don't need to spot up from 19. You can spot up from 22. But like dudes who are going to get the ball and go score, they need to be able to score from all 3 levels. And Shaedon Sharpe has shown the ability to do that. But what I wonder a little bit, and why I talked about the off-script stuff, is what if Shaedon Sharpe is actually better as a play finisher than a playmaker? What if the best version of Shaedon Sharpe is not this crazy offensive Paul George T-Mac hub, right? Like what if he's not that? Obviously, like those, again, Hall of Famers, high praise. But what if he's more, and a comp that I've thrown out there is, what if he's more Jason Richardson, and that he is a wing spacer, a guy who can slash when needed to, and he's more of a play finisher. You throw him the ball when you need to go get a bucket, as opposed to bring him across the court and set up and hope that he can help the team get a bucket. A little bit different. A play finisher as opposed to a playmaker, making plays to finish, in the DeAndre Ayton mold. It's like, what does DeAndre Ayton do? He finishes plays. He shoots, and when he gets to his spots, he's darn good at it. And what if Sharpe is that? I worry a little bit about that, because the expectations are that he is, what I said, the best case scenario is that like perennial all-star type of talent. And certainly he has some of those skills to unlock. But if he isn't that, like if he is merely just a really good, solid starting NBA wing, and like you get to the end of the season, it's like, well, yeah, he's probably not a perennial all-star, right? And like he'll be extension eligible next year. And it's like, if the Blazers, say like, well, we're not going to offer him a contract extension, or his camp says like, we don't want a contract extension because there's more to show from Sharpe. We'll wait until the summer when he enters restricted free agency after his rookie deal. It's like, that might feel worse. And I caution a little bit against that because one, the book isn't written in year 3, but there's some expectations that he takes a big leap. But what if he takes a half leap? What if the efficiency jumps, right? 38% from 3, but instead of generating 8 threes a game because he just doesn't have that role or maybe that skill set, he's taken 4.5, but he shoots really well from 3. And what if instead of driving to the rim and getting all these crazy superstar layups, he's just working the baseline again? His rookie year, he lived as a cutter in the baseline. What if he grows into this really high level cutter and he ends up being like an elite off ball guy? That's going to feel bad. And I say this to say that's a pretty good outcome. If Shaedon Sharpe is clearly a NBA starter at the end of the season, because I don't think he is that right now. I think he has the tools to be that, but it's he hasn't been good enough to say that, right? If you're talking about starter on a good team, he just hasn't been that yet. It's if he gets to the end of the year and he's a surefire NBA starter, it might not feel like he made it. He didn't get to the top of the mountain, but it's going to feel that's a pretty good outcome. So I worry with guys who have high expectations externally from the fan base that even good stuff feels bad. And so I caution a little bit here that my expectation for Shaedon Sharpe is that he is capable of hitting his best case scenario, capable of showing that oh, dude, this dude gets MIP votes. This guy gets, he's so clearly ready to take that step forward. But if he takes 70% of that step, 65% of that step, that's still a really good direction that you need to go. What's key for the Blazers is that they find a star, right? But if they don't, it is really important that these draft picks that they've made along the way, the Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson, and Donovan Clingan, are functionally talented players that can be part of what's next. No duds, no bummers. That's the path. Right? It's oh yeah, well they didn't hit this. This isn't a crazy home run, but this is a 10-year NBA starter who can play. This is Jason Richardson, right? This is a dude whose athleticism is a unique level of athleticism. All of those things. Sharpe has the tools to be special, but utilizing all those tools in a variety of roles and being able to, translate across a couple different roles and to utilize those tools until you grow into the level to be give me the damn ball and get out of the way. It can be a little rocky. I think Sharpe, and my expectation for Sharpe is that he's like I said, I think he's going to score 18 a game. I really do. I think that's I think you can book it at 18 a game for him. And it could be 22, depending on kind of the role and how everything shakes out with the rest of the roster. But whether he hits, how high he climbs on the best case, worst case scenario meter, I think in some ways depends on how you feel about him in September. If you feel like he can be a superstar and he is shy of that, it might feel bad. If you think gosh, I hope he's a lot better, and he's a lot better, I think he's going to. I think this is a year 3 jump. I think we can see it from him. Some of this, and this is I'm going to touch on this very briefly at the end. Some of this is a question of what kind of dude Shaedon Sharpe is. Is Shaedon Sharpe obsessed with being the best version of an NBA basketball player he can possibly be? He's a little bit aloof. He's hard to read as a person, right? He just has a very aloof personality such that it is hard to tell how much he loves basketball because he's not outwardly maniacal about his passion, right? He seems a little detached sometimes. Some players with that mentality we celebrate. We say, "Oh my gosh, and he is so even keel. He barely has a heartbeat. This dude's crazy," like the Nikola Jokic type of thing. But if players don't hit that, you start to circle and say, that personality is a sign of XX and X. So my expectation for Shaedon Sharpe is that I think he's going to improve a lot. I think he's going to take it to the next level. And one of the things I'm going to be watching this year is what is that next level? How far can he go? And does he have... I don't think he is going to have the mentality and just personality to be the emotional core of a team, right? He's never going to be that. But freaking Kawhi Leonard was maybe the best player in the world for 10 weeks during a playoff run, and that dude does not have the mentality or the temperament to be an emotional core of the team. He has the temperament to be a bucket getter. At some point, talent wins out. But there are levels to this. And so one of the things I'm just going to watch with Sharpe is, what is he like? What's he like as a dude? What kind of person is he? Is he someone who you think is obsessed with getting there? Or is he someone who would like to get there if it works out? I think it's hard to know, because I think we see the results and then we retcon them to the personality. So I don't want to, I can't tell you either way, but it is certainly something that has caught my eye with Sharpe. And I'm certain if you've watched him closely, it's caught your eye as well. Is this dude obsessed? Because the league is filled with talented players, and the margins are indeed very slim. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. We got 5 of them coming this week. I'm trying to line up a fun interview for later this week. You were listening to Monday, September 23rd show. We're a week out from training camp. We're not going to wrap up all of these previews heading into training camp, just the way I have them scheduled out. But we will do the one you've been waiting for. Your boy Sterling Scoot Henderson. We'll talk about it towards the end of the week. I believe that's going to be Thursday show, depending on an interview schedule. And then Friday and Monday we'll look ahead to media day, and then it's on, baby. Then they're practicing, and we'll have more questions to answer. But we'll hear from the principals, the principal characters of this bad boy. So I'm excited. It's here. Let's go. One more week of the true off season, and then things will get going. Tell your friends about the program. Tell them they can get it wherever they get podcasts, and also on YouTube, free on all your platforms, always. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.